My name is Emily Carter, and I grew up in the quiet suburbs of Portland, Oregon. Life has never been easy for me, but it has always been full of lessons, surprises, and people who shaped the person I am today. One of the most unexpected figures in that journey was my stepfather, Mark Harrison. I was 16 when my mom remarried. After my parents' divorce, my mother, Linda, worked tirelessly to raise me on her own. She was a nurse at the local hospital, working double shifts, barely sleeping, and still managing to make it to every school play and science fair. She was my hero, but she was also human, lonely, exhausted, and burdened by the weight of responsibility. When she introduced me to Mark for the first time, I didn't know what to expect. He was tall, kind-eyed, with the sort of calm presence that made rooms feel safer. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't overly charming, but there was something about him that said steady. Mom smiled around him in a way I hadn't seen in years. I tried to be polite, but deep down, I was protective of my mom. I didn't want anyone to hurt her again. Emily, Mom said that night at dinner, Mark means a lot to me. I hope you'll give him a chance. I forced a smile. Of course, Mom. Inside, though, I built walls. The day everything shifted. Fast forward 2 years. I was 18, juggling high school finals and dreaming of leaving for college. Things with Mark had been civil. He respected my space, drove me to school sometimes, and cheered at my soccer games. But still, I kept him at arm's length. One rainy evening, I was in my room, struggling over a math problem. My mom was on a night shift, and the house felt unusually quiet. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door. Emily. Mark's voice. Yeah, I replied, not looking up from my notebook. The door creaked open, and he stepped in, holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa. He set one beside me on the desk. You've been at it for hours. Thought you could use a break. I blinked at the steaming cup. Thanks. He leaned against the doorframe, not intruding, just present. You know, when I was your age, math used to scare the life out of me. But my dad used to tell me something: don't run from the problem. Break it down, step by step. That's how I learned. I don't know why, but something in the way he said it, so gently, made my defenses crack. For the first time, I didn't see him as just my mom's husband. I saw him as someone who genuinely cared. That night, we ended up sitting at the desk, working through equations together. And when I solved the problem on my own, he smiled proudly, as if I were his own daughter. It was in that simple moment, my stepfather walking into my room with hot cocoa, that everything began to change. The college dream. By the time graduation rolled around, Mark had become more than just a presence in the house. He became a steady hand in the chaos of teenagehood. He taught me how to drive, helped me fill out college applications, and even fixed my old laptop when it crashed the night before a big assignment. Still, my heart was restless. I had dreams bigger than Portland. I wanted to study journalism in New York City. The idea of skyscrapers, bustling streets, and endless stories waiting to be told kept me awake at night. But dreams come with doubts. What if I don't get in? What if I'm not good enough? I whispered one evening at the dinner table. Mark set down his fork and looked at me. Emily, you are more than enough. Don't let fear be louder than your voice. Mom reached for my hand, and in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just part of a fractured family anymore. I was part of a healing one. A new beginning. I got in. New York University. The day acceptance letters came, I screamed so loudly the neighbors probably thought something terrible had happened. Mark lifted me off the ground in a celebratory hug, and for the first time, I hugged him back tightly. That summer was a blur of packing boxes, tearful goodbyes, and anxious excitement. Mark drove me across the country, a 4-day road trip that would forever be etched into my memory. We sang along to old rock songs, argued about the best fast food chains, and talked late into the night about life. Somewhere between the miles of cornfields and city lights, I realized I had gained a father. Not by blood, but by love. The love story that found me. New York was everything I dreamed of: loud, fast, alive. But it was also lonely. I was 19, a small town girl lost in a sea of strangers. Between classes and part-time jobs, I barely had time to breathe. That's when I met Daniel Parker. He was a fellow journalism student, witty and warm, with a smile that felt like sunshine on the grayest Manhattan day. We started as study partners in the library, sharing coffee and deadlines, until late-night walks along the Hudson became our routine. Daniel wasn't perfect, he was stubborn, messy, and sometimes too idealistic, but he made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in years. Slowly, quietly, he slipped into my heart. One snowy evening, after a long day of classes, he walked me to my dorm and stopped under the glowing street lamp. "Emily," he said softly, "you make this city feel like home." My heart pounded, and in that moment, I realized I was falling in love. Lessons from Mark. Through it all, Mark never stopped being there. He called every Sunday, checking in on my classes, my health, my dreams. He never pried too much into my personal life, but somehow, he always knew when I was struggling. When Daniel and I had our first fight, about career choices and long-distance fears, I found myself crying on the phone to Mark. "Emily," he said gently, "love isn't about never fighting. It's about choosing each other, even when it's hard. I chose your mom every day, even when she drove me crazy. If you think Daniel is worth it, fight for him. If not, let go. But don't run away because you're scared." His words grounded me. They always did. The moment of truth. Years passed. Daniel and I built a life together, messy but beautiful. I graduated with honors, landed my first job at a magazine, and watched my byline appear in print. One spring, Daniel took me back to Portland to visit my family. We were sitting in the backyard, the scent of barbecued chicken in the air, when Daniel suddenly dropped to one knee. "Emily Carter," he said, his voice trembling, "will you marry me?" Tears blurred my vision. Yes. The cheers that erupted were deafening. My mom cried, my friends clapped, but it was Mark's face that struck me the most. He looked at me the way a father looks at his daughter, proud, emotional, overflowing with love. Full circle. On my wedding day, I asked Mark to walk me down the aisle. "Are you sure?" he whispered, his eyes shining. "Of course," I smiled. "You walked into my room years ago and changed everything. You deserve this." As we walked together, I realized how life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes the people we guard against the most become the ones who save us. Mark wasn't just my stepfather. He was my dad. And Daniel wasn't just my classmate. He was my forever. Together, they taught me what real love looks like: steady, patient, and unconditional. And that, more than anything, is the story of how my stepfather walking into my room one ordinary evening changed the course of my entire life.